Lieutenant Commander Sam Foster stood at the viewport of the transport shuttle, gazing at the massive spaceship floating in the orbital dock. The ISV Defiant was nothing like the modern ships of the Galactic Fleet. Instead of smooth lines and gleaming surfaces, it had a blocky, rough appearance. Its hull showed scars and marks from years of service. Sam sighed. After 5 years of perfect service records and commendations, this assignment felt like a punishment. He had expected to be placed on one of the new Aurora-class vessels, not this ancient ship that belonged in a museum. "Sir, we're preparing to dock," the shuttle pilot called back to him. Sam nodded, gathering his small bag of personal belongings. He didn't need much. Standard uniforms would be waiting in his quarters, and the fleet didn't encourage many personal items anyway. "First time on a Horizon-class ship?" the pilot asked, noticing Sam's expression. "Is it that obvious?" Sam replied with a half-smile. "Most officers look that way when they see the Defiant for the first time. Don't worry, she might be old, but she's sturdy." The shuttle approached the docking bay, which looked tiny compared to the massive hangars of modern ships. As they entered, Sam noticed how outdated everything appeared. The lighting was dimmer, the equipment larger and more mechanical, rather than the sleek digital systems he was used to. When the shuttle landed, Sam was greeted by Lieutenant Maria Diaz, a small woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform looked slightly different from the current fleet standard, another reminder that the Defiant operated differently. "Lieutenant Commander Foster, welcome aboard the Defiant. I'm the first officer's assistant," she said, offering a crisp salute. Sam returned the salute and followed her through narrow corridors. Unlike the bright, wide passageways of modern ships, these were cramped and utilitarian, with exposed pipes and conduits running along the ceiling. "That's your new assignment?" Lieutenant Diaz asked, following his gaze as he looked around. "I thought they decommissioned those old Horizon-class ships years ago." "Almost all of them," Sam replied. "The Defiant is the last one in active service." "You don't seem pleased," Maria observed as they entered a lift that groaned as it moved upward. "I was expecting something different," Sam admitted. "My last posting was on the ISV Constellation. Latest technology, neural interfaces, quantum computers." Maria smiled. "The Defiant is different, that's for sure. But there's more to this ship than meets the eye." The lift stopped, and they stepped out onto the command deck. Unlike the bright holographic displays of modern command centers, this one had physical controls, buttons, and switches. The view screen was smaller, and there were fewer stations. At the center of it all stood a woman with silver-streaked hair and a weathered face. She turned as Sam entered, her piercing eyes evaluating him in seconds. "Captain Hayes, this is Lieutenant Commander Sam Foster, your new Strategic Operations Officer," Maria announced. Captain Olivia Hayes didn't smile or offer her hand. "Lieutenant Commander, welcome aboard. I've reviewed your service record. Impressive, for someone who's only served on our newest ships." There was something in her tone, not quite mockery, but a challenge. "Thank you, Captain," Sam replied. "I'm looking forward to learning about the Defiant." "Are you?" Captain Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Most officers consider this assignment a punishment or a dead end, the ship where careers go to die." Sam wasn't sure how to respond to her bluntness. "Report to your station at 600 tomorrow," Hayes continued. "Lieutenant Diaz will show you to your quarters." As Sam followed Maria back to the lift, he glanced at the other crew members working at their stations. They were focused, professional, but there was something else, a quiet pride, perhaps, that he hadn't expected to find on an outdated vessel. "Is she always so?" he began. "Direct." Maria finished for him. "Yes. Captain Hayes doesn't waste time with pleasantries, but there's no one better in a crisis, and no one who knows this ship better." Sam nodded, wondering what he had gotten himself into. Sam's quarters were even more basic than he expected. A small bed, a desk, and a metal cabinet for his belongings filled the tiny room. The walls were bare metal, showing years of wear. He unpacked quickly and studied the ship's layout on his tablet. The next morning, Sam arrived at the command center 10 minutes early. Most of the stations were already staffed. The night crew was finishing their shift, looking tired but alert. "Good morning, Lieutenant Commander," Captain Hayes said without looking up from her console. "I believe you're familiar with our assignment." "Yes, Captain. We're to patrol the outer colonies in Sector 7, particularly the mining operations on Ceres Alpha." Hayes nodded. "Correct. Though I wonder if they told you why they assigned the Defiant to this mission instead of one of the newer ships." Before Sam could answer, the doors opened and several officers entered. They wore the same slightly outdated uniforms as the rest of the crew. "Ah, the rest of our new transfers," Hayes said. "Perfect timing." 5 officers stood at attention. Sam recognized the look of disappointment on their faces, the same expression he had tried to hide yesterday. "At ease," Hayes said. "I'm Captain Olivia Hayes. Welcome aboard the ISV Defiant. I know none of you requested this assignment. I know what they say about us at Fleet Command, that we're the ship they send officers to when their careers are over." The new arrivals shifted uncomfortably. Among them, Lieutenant Ethan Martinez and Communications Specialist Grace Wilson exchanged nervous glances. "Let me be clear," Hayes continued. "I don't care why you're here. I care what you do now that you are here. The Defiant may not be as pretty as the ships you're used to, but she's solid, and she has capabilities you won't find on any other vessel in the fleet." One of the new officers, a young man with a tactical insignia, raised his hand. "Captain, if I may ask, why hasn't the Defiant been upgraded or decommissioned? The Horizon-class ships were built 40 years ago." Hayes almost smiled. "An excellent question, Lieutenant Parker. The simple answer is that certain systems on this ship cannot be upgraded without destroying what makes them special. You'll learn more as you serve aboard. For now, report to your stations and begin familiarizing yourselves with your duties." As the officers dispersed, Sam remained at his station, reviewing the patrol route. The command center hummed with activity, but it was different from what he was used to. Less automated, more human interaction. "Strange, isn't it?" a voice said beside him. Sam turned to see Lieutenant Martins at the navigation station. "What's that?" Sam asked. "All this manual input," Martins replied, gesturing to his controls. "My last ship. Everything was neural interface. Here, we actually have to push buttons." Sam nodded. "It's definitely traditional." "That's one word for it," Martins said with a smile. "I heard they keep the Defiant in service as a backup in case of system-wide AI failures. A ship that can run completely without advanced computers." "That's not entirely accurate, Lieutenant," Captain Hayes said, suddenly behind them. Both men straightened. "The Defiant remains in service because there are things it can do that no other ship in the fleet can match." "With respect, Captain," Sam said, "what can an outdated Horizon-class vessel do that the new Aurora-class ships can't?" Hayes looked at him with those piercing eyes. "Hopefully, you won't have to find out, Commander. But if you do," she paused. "Let's just say that modern isn't always better." The bridge fell silent as Hayes returned to her chair. Sam exchanged glances with Martinez, both wondering what the captain meant. As the Defiant powered up its engines and pulled away from the orbital dock, Sam felt the ship tremble slightly beneath his feet. It wasn't the smooth, almost imperceptible acceleration of modern ships. This felt more real, more physical, like riding a living creature rather than a machine. Sam wasn't sure if that was reassuring or concerning. 3 days into their patrol mission, Sam still hadn't adjusted to life aboard the Defiant. The routines were different, more manual. Crew members actually spoke to each other instead of sending digital messages. In the mess hall, people sat together at long tables, rather than eating alone at personal stations. Sam was finishing his breakfast when his tablet beeped with a message from Captain Hayes. "Commander Foster, report to engineering at 900. At precisely 9 a.m., Sam arrived at the large doors marked engineering. Unlike the rest of the ship, these doors were brand new, with advanced security measures. He placed his hand on the scanner, and after a moment, the doors slid open. Inside, engineering looked nothing like what Sam expected. While the rest of the ship maintained its original design, this room had been completely rebuilt. It was larger than should have been possible given the ship's dimensions. Chief Engineer Alex Morgan greeted him. Morgan was older than most active engineers, with gray hair and hands that showed years of practical work. "Commander Foster, welcome to the heart of the Defiant," Morgan said, shaking Sam's hand firmly. "Captain Hayes thought it was time you saw what makes this ship special." Morgan led Sam through the engineering bay. Most of the equipment looked standard, if outdated: power distribution systems, life support controls, and thruster management stations. But at the center of the room stood something Sam had never seen before. Behind thick protective barriers was a massive crystalline structure suspended in a containment field. It pulsed with a blue-green light that seemed to shift and move in impossible ways. The crystal was at least 15 feet tall, with countless facets that reflected light differently from every angle. "What am I looking at?" Sam asked, staring at the structure. "The founders called it a reality displacement drive," Alex explained. "Before quantum computing, before neural interfaces, there was this. It doesn't just move through space. According to the original engineers, it bends reality itself." Sam stepped closer to the barrier. "This can't be the original propulsion system. The Horizon-class ships used standard fusion drives." Morgan smiled. "That's what everyone is supposed to believe. Only a handful of people in the fleet know the truth. The Defiant and its sister ships were built around this technology. The conventional drives were just for show and backup." "Why hasn't this technology been implemented in newer ships?" Sam asked, unable to take his eyes off the crystal. Alex smiled cryptically. "Because no one understands how it works anymore." "That's impossible. We have the most advanced scientists in the galaxy." "And none of them can explain this," Morgan replied. "The engineers who built it left incomplete records. Some say it was deliberate. They didn't want this power widely available. Every attempt to create a new version has failed." Sam watched as technicians monitored the crystal from safe distances. "So it's dangerous." "Extremely, in the wrong hands or if improperly handled. That's why the security, why the secrecy. That's why the Defiant is kept in service despite being outdated." Morgan walked to a control panel and brought up a diagram. "The drive doesn't push the ship through space like conventional engines. Instead, it alters the nature of reality around the ship. Space itself moves, not the Defiant." Sam struggled to understand. "Like folding space. More complex than that. Under certain conditions, it can alter other fundamental properties: time, physical laws, even probability." Sam shook his head in disbelief. "Captain Hayes said this ship can do things others can't. Is this what she meant?" "Partly," Morgan said. "But you haven't seen anything yet. The displacement drive has capabilities we've never fully tested. The original engineers wrote about effects that sound impossible, even by our standards." Just then, their conversation was interrupted by the ship's alert system. Captain Hayes's voice came over the intercom. "Senior officers to the command center immediately. We've received a distress call from Research Outpost Gamma. Possible hostile contact." Morgan looked at Sam. "Seems you might get to see what this old ship can really do sooner than expected." Sam rushed to the command center with Morgan right behind him. When they arrived, Captain Hayes was already reviewing data on the main screen. "Report," Hayes ordered as they entered. Lieutenant Grace Wilson responded from the communications station. "Distress signal from Research Outpost Gamma. They've reported 3 unidentified vessels entering their space." The message cut off mid-transmission. Sam moved to his station. "Outpost Gamma is near the border of Keylarian space, Captain. It's a sensitive location." "I'm aware, Commander." Hayes turned to the navigation officer. "Lieutenant Martinez, set course for Outpost Gamma, maximum speed." "Aye, Captain." ETA 4 hours using standard drives. Hayes exchanged a look with Chief Engineer Morgan. We don't have 4 hours. Alex, prepare the displacement drive. A hush fell over the command center. Sam noticed several of the veteran crew members straighten in their seats, while the newer transfers looked confused. Captain, Morgan said cautiously, we haven't used the drive for rapid transit in over 2 years. There are risks. Noted. Proceed anyway. Hayes turned to Sam. Commander, you've just had your introduction to our special engine. Now you'll see it in action. Morgan nodded and left for engineering. Hayes activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, prepare for displacement drive activation. Secure all stations and equipment. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, crew members rushed to follow displacement protocols. Sam watched as even the newest crew members seemed to know exactly what to do, despite having never experienced this before. They were all briefed during orientation. Hayes explained, noticing Sam's surprise. Everyone on this ship is cleared for knowledge of the drive. The lights dimmed as power redirected to engineering. On the command screens, Sam could see the crystalline structure beginning to glow brighter. Displacement drive at 70%. Morgan's voice reported over the comm. Ready on your mark, Captain. All stations, report readiness, Hayes ordered. One by one, each section of the ship confirmed they were prepared. Sam felt an unusual tension in the air. Not fear exactly, but anticipation. Engage displacement drive, Hayes commanded. The ship shuddered slightly. On the view screen, the stars seemed to stretch and blur. Sam felt a strange sensation, as if his body was both perfectly still and moving incredibly fast at the same time. His vision blurred momentarily, and he gripped his console. Displacement effect stable, Morgan reported. We're on course. Just 90 seconds later, the strange effects faded. The view screen cleared to show a small space station orbiting a rocky planet. 3 sleek, aggressive-looking vessels surrounded the station. Displacement complete, Martins announced, sounding slightly awed. We've arrived at Outpost Gamma. Sam checked his instruments in disbelief. That's impossible. We just covered over 12 light hours of distance in less than 2 minutes. Hayes ignored his comment. Status of the unknown vessels. Confirmed Killarian warships, Captain, reported Lieutenant Parker from Tactical. Destroyer class. They're powering weapons systems. Open a channel, Hayes ordered. Grace Wilson worked at her console. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Hayes of the ISV Defiant. We're responding to a distress call from our research team. The screen flickered, then showed the insectoid face of a Killarian commander. His mandibles clicked with visible disdain as he studied the Defiant. Human vessel, you have entered a disputed region. This research outpost has violated Killarian territorial boundaries. We are exercising our right to remove this illegal installation. Hayes remained calm. Commander, this outpost is well within Alliance space according to all recognized star charts. I request that you stand down and withdraw your vessels. The Killarian's compound eyes flashed with what Sam recognized as amusement or contempt. Your outdated vessel is no match for our fleet. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. We will give you 1 standard hour to retreat before we open fire on both you and the research station. The transmission cut off abruptly. They've taken up attack positions around us and the outpost, Parker reported. Weapons locked on both targets. Hayes turned to Sam. Well, Commander Foster, it seems you'll get to see what this outdated ship can really do after all. The command center erupted with activity as officers prepared for possible combat. Sam studied the tactical display, analyzing the 3 Killarian warships. They were indeed formidable, the newest class of Killarian destroyers with advanced weapons and shielding. Options, Commander? Hayes asked Sam, surprising him with the request for input. Standard protocol would be to request backup from Fleet Command, Sam replied. Even with our quick arrival, it would take several hours for other ships to reach us. Hayes nodded. And in those hours, the Kilarians could destroy the research station and claim it was self-defense. What else? Sam considered carefully. The Defiant is outgunned by conventional measures. However, he hesitated, thinking of the crystal engine he had just seen. I'm not familiar with the combat capabilities of our special drive. A small smile flickered across Hayes' face. Now you're thinking correctly. Lieutenant Parker, defensive status. Shields at maximum, Captain, but they won't hold against concentrated fire from all 3 destroyers, Parker responded. Hayes pressed a button on her chair. Engineering. Chief Morgan, what's the status of the displacement drive? Morgan's voice came through clearly. Cooling down from our jump, Captain. We can use it again in approximately 20 minutes, but I wouldn't recommend another long-distance jump so soon. Not planning one, Hayes said. I need combat capabilities. Is the field generator operational? There was a pause before Morgan answered. Yes, but we haven't tested it under actual combat conditions in years. It's about to be tested, Hayes stated firmly. Prepare for defensive displacement field on my mark. Sam looked at Hayes. Captain, what exactly are you planning? Instead of answering directly, Hayes addressed the entire bridge. The Kilarians believe we're helpless because they don't understand what the Defiant can do. When the first Horizon-class ships were built, the designers included capabilities that have since been classified or forgotten. She turned to communications. Lieutenant Wilson, open a channel to the research station. Channel open, Captain. Research Outpost Gamma. This is Captain Hayes of the Defiant. We're going to create an opening for you to evacuate. Prepare to transfer all personnel to our ship on my signal. A stressed voice responded. Captain, we have 32 researchers here, plus sensitive equipment and data. Focus on the people, Hayes interrupted. We'll try to save your data, but no guarantees. Be ready in 15 minutes. The hour deadline from the Kilarians hadn't yet expired, but Sam noticed the enemy ships shifting position, surrounding the Defiant and the research station in a triangular formation. They're not planning to wait the full hour, Parker reported. Energy readings show they're charging weapons. Hayes stood from her chair. Lieutenant Martinez, plot a course directly between the station and the Lid Kilarian ship. Lieutenant Parker, weapons on standby, but do not lock targets yet. The tension on the bridge was palpable as Martinez carefully maneuvered the ship into position. The massive Defiant drifted slowly between the research station and the largest Kilarian destroyer. They've opened fire, Parker shouted as energy beams lanced out from the nearest Kilarian ship. The Defiant shook as the first volley struck its shields. Shields at 70% and dropping, Parker reported. They're firing again. Evasive maneuvers, Captain Hayes ordered calmly. Alex, I need everything from that old engine. In engineering, Alex's hands flew across the ancient control panel. Captain, I've never pushed the displacement drive this hard before. The manual says. Forget the manual, Hayes interrupted. Do what the old engineers did. Feel it. The Defiant shuddered under another barrage of Kilarian weapons fire. Consoles sparked, and emergency lighting activated in sections of the bridge. Shields at 40%, Parker called out. We can't take much more of this. Sam gripped his console as the ship rocked again. Whatever we're doing, Captain, we need to do it now. Hayes nodded grimly. Alex, activate the displacement field. Now. From engineering, Morgan's voice came through strained but determined. Displacement field activating in 3, 2, 1. The crystalline structure at the heart of the engine began to glow intensely, its facets refracting light in impossible ways as the Defiant prepared to demonstrate why it had never truly been outdated. The strange sensation returned, but different this time. Instead of feeling like they were moving impossibly fast, Sam felt as if the ship had become somehow less solid. The air shimmered around them, and the lights on the bridge took on that same blue-green glow as the crystal in engineering. Displacement field active, Morgan reported, his voice sounding strangely distant, localized reality distortion in effect. On the view screen, the fabric of space visibly twisted around the Defiant. Light stretched and compressed as the fundamental laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. The Kilarian energy weapons firing at the ship seemed to slow down, their beams bending and dispersing before reaching the Defiant's hull. "What's happening?" Sam demanded, gripping his console as reality itself seemed to warp. Captain Hayes smiled for the first time since Sam had met her. The Defiant is remembering what it was built for. Around them, normal space folded into something else entirely. The pursuing Kilarian vessels seemed to slow, their forms stretching like images in a funhouse mirror. Their weapons fire dispersed harmlessly into the distorted space around the Defiant. "They're trapped in a localized time dilation field," Grace said in awe. "What they're experiencing as seconds, we're experiencing as hours." Hayes nodded. "The displacement field doesn't just bend space, it bends time and causal relationships. To them, we appear to be moving at impossible speeds. But we're actually barely moving at all," Sam realized, watching the tactical display. The Kilarian ships were nearly frozen in place, their movement slowed to a crawl. "Exactly. Lieutenant Parker, target the weapons systems on all 3 ships. Precise shots only. We don't want to destroy them." Parker's hands moved across his console. "Targeting solutions ready, Captain." "Fire." The Defiant's weapons, ordinary by modern standards, seemed to move at normal speed through the distorted space. They struck each Kilarian ship with perfect accuracy, disabling their main weapons arrays. "Lieutenant Wilson, open a channel to the research station. Tell them to begin evacuation immediately. The displacement field creates a corridor of normal space between us and the station." Wilson quickly relayed the orders. On the screen, they could see small transport pods beginning to launch from the station, traveling along a visible corridor of undistorted space toward the Defiant's docking bay. "Evacuation has begun, Captain," Wilson reported. "Estimated completion in 20 minutes. Morgan's voice came over the comm again, sounding strained. "Captain, the displacement field is consuming enormous power. We can maintain it for 30 minutes at most before risking damage to the crystal." "Understood. That should be enough time." Hayes turned to Sam. "Commander, oversee the evacuation. Make sure we get everyone and as much of their research data as possible." Sam hurried to the docking bay, still trying to process what he had just witnessed. The ship had literally bent reality around itself, creating a bubble where different laws of physics applied. No modern vessel in the fleet could do anything remotely similar. When he reached the docking area, the first transport pods were already arriving. Frightened researchers stumbled out, looking disoriented from passing through the displacement field. "You're safe now," Sam assured them, directing crew members to help. "Gather in the mess hall. Bring any data storage devices with you." For the next 20 minutes, Sam coordinated the evacuation. When the last pod arrived, the lead scientist, Dr. Laura Reeves, approached him. "Commander, we've brought the core research data, but we had to leave most of the equipment behind," she said, clutching the small case. "Is it true? Are you really going to escape from 3 Kilarian destroyers?" Sam smiled. "We already have, Doctor. They just don't know it yet." Back on the bridge, Hayes was monitoring the situation. "Evacuation complete, Captain," Sam reported as he returned to his station. "Excellent. Chief Morgan, status of the displacement field." "Critical levels, Captain. We need to shut it down within the next 5 minutes." Hayes nodded. "Prepare to end the field effect and immediately engage standard engines, maximum thrust. We'll be out of range before the Kilarians realize what happened." As Morgan began the shutdown sequence, the distortion around the ship gradually faded. The blue-green glow dimmed, and normal space reasserted itself. "Displacement field deactivating in 3, 2, 1. Now." The view screen cleared, showing the Kilarian ships still in their original positions, Weapons damaged and crews likely confused about what had just happened. Full thrust, Lieutenant Martinez. Get us out of here, Hayes ordered. 3 days after the encounter with the Kilarian vessels, the Defiant returned to Earth orbit. The research team had settled into temporary quarters, and their data was being analyzed by the Science Division. Sam stood on the bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the view screen. Quite a first week, wouldn't you say, Commander? Captain Hayes said, joining him by the view screen. Sam nodded. I've served on 3 different ships in my career, Captain, and I'd never seen anything like what the Defiant can do. And now you understand why an outdated ship is still valuable to the fleet. Before Sam could respond, Lieutenant Wilson called from her station. Captain, incoming transmission from Fleet Command. It's Admiral Howard. On screen, Hayes ordered, straightening her uniform. The view screen changed to show Admiral Howard, a stern-faced man with short gray hair. His expression was unusually respectful as he addressed Hayes. Captain Hayes, I've reviewed your preliminary report regarding the Kilarian incident. Impressive work, as always. Thank you, Admiral. The Defiant performed excellently. Indeed, the Kilarians have issued a formal apology, the Admiral reported. Apparently, their encounter with the Defiant has revised their military assessment of our capabilities. Captain Hayes nodded. I trust this means the Defiant won't be scheduled for decommissioning anytime soon. On the contrary, the Admiral replied. Fleet Command wants a full report on that displacement drive. There's talk of reverse engineering it for the new Genesis-class vessels. Hayes raised an eyebrow. With all due respect, Admiral, we've been trying to replicate the displacement drive for decades without success. Yes, but this incident has renewed interest. A team of engineers and scientists will meet your ship when you dock. They want to study the crystal directly. After the transmission ended, Sam turned to Captain Hayes. So the oldest ship in the fleet just saved humanity's reputation. Hayes ran her hand along the aged console. Sometimes, Lieutenant Commander, the old ways still have something to teach us. The Defiant wasn't outdated. The rest of us just hadn't caught up to it yet. Later that day, Sam joined the other officers in the mess hall. The atmosphere had changed completely. The new transfers who had once looked disappointed with their assignment now spoke animatedly about the mission. Lieutenant Martinez waved Sam over to join them. Commander, we were just talking about the displacement field. Do you think they'll really be able to copy it for the newer ships? Sam sat down with his tray. I'm not sure. Chief Morgan thinks there's something special about this particular crystal. It might not be something we can manufacture. I heard the original engineers found it. They didn't create it. Grace Wilson added. Some say it's not even from our dimension. Whatever it is, Lieutenant Parker said, I'm just glad to be assigned to the Defiant now. Wait until I tell my friends who pitied me for getting this posting. Sam smiled, thinking how quickly things had changed. A week ago, he had viewed this assignment as a career setback. Now, he understood it was actually a rare privilege. Captain Hayes entered the mess hall, something she rarely did during mealtimes. The room quieted as she approached their table. I thought you should all know, she announced, that Admiral Howard has just confirmed our new assignment. The Defiant will lead a diplomatic mission to the Kilarian homeworld. It seems our recent demonstration has made them eager to improve relations. Sam couldn't help but laugh. They want to make sure we're on their side rather than against them. Hayes allowed herself a small smile. Precisely. And Fleet Command has approved my request to keep all of you on board for the foreseeable future. It seems your punishment assignments have turned into the most coveted positions in the fleet. As Hayes left, the officers exchanged excited glances. Sam felt a new sense of pride in serving aboard the Defiant. The ship might look old and weathered from the outside, but it contained wonders that the newest vessels could only dream of. To the Defiant, Sam said, raising his cup in a toast, the ship that bends reality itself. Everyone at the table raised their cups. To the Defiant,